today's video, we're going to be working on a solo rendition of the beautiful melody Shenandoah for ukulele. This works on both high G and low G ukulele, and it makes for a lesson that's perfect for anyone who's looking to add harmony and chords to create more depth within their solo playing. We're not only going to learn how to play this beautiful melody, but we're also going to learn how to create fills as you progress with this tune. It's a lot of fun. Let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to bring the camera down, and it's going to look something like this with the tabs on screen. Now, if you'd like to download this tab, it is available on my Patreon page. Every month we do a song vote, and this one won this month's lesson vote. So let's go ahead and dive in, look at the first 4 bars plus the pickup bar here. And just to get an idea of how it should sound something like this. So now to dive in with playing this, we're going to start with the G chord, just the 2 on the C there, index finger there on the 2nd fret of your C string. We're going to pluck that by itself. Now, as far as the technique that I'm using here, I'm using something called a rest stroke. Now, there's actually a video. You can check out the card right here, and that will teach you this technique. But the gist of it is the thumb here is striking a string, in this case, the 2nd fret on the C string, and then it's resting on the next string, which is my E string here. After I've done that, I'm then going to play my G chord, but I'm going to do a rest stroke stopping on the A string. So you'll notice I'm playing a G as we normally do, index finger here on the 2nd fret of the C string, ring finger here on the 3rd fret of the E, and middle finger here on the 2nd fret of the A. But as I strum it, I'm going to stop on this A string. And I do that because my melody note is this 3 on the E. So I want to make sure that I'm announcing that. So you see the thumb stops right there. And then I'm going to play that 3 on the E 2 more times. And so that first little part goes. Now, when we look at the second measure here, it does get a little bit confusing. Why are these notes in parentheses? Well, I use these on this tab program to showcase that these are optional notes. These are filler notes. If you remember at the start of the video, I mentioned that we're going to learn how to add filler. If you're more of a beginner player, just skip all of the notes that are in parentheses. They are not necessary to play this arrangement. But when you're looking to add a little bit more depth, you can play these notes. Just make sure that you play them a little bit softer and maybe a little bit different too. I like to take my thumb and graze with the pad of the finger across the strings in a down strum for this nice filler strum. Hear how quiet that is? I want it to sound different because it is supposed to be background. It's supposed to be almost like a band playing behind you. So to play that first chord there with the melody, it sounds like this. Then moving forward, I'm going to play the open on the A. Just take that middle finger off. And when I do this, I need to play that note loud because it's no longer parentheses, so this is the melody. Now I'm going to play 2 on the A. Now I could just add this middle finger back on, but what I want to actually do here is set up the next chord that's coming. So I'm going to take my index finger and I'm going to move that to the 2nd fret of the A string. And then for the 3 on the A, I'm going to slide that index finger up again. And the reason for this is as we go into the 3rd measure, this index finger is going to slide all the way up here to fret 7, right? You'll notice that there's a dot right there on your side. That should help indicate where that index finger should slide up to. And as the index finger slides up to 7, I'm going to take my middle finger, I'm going to add it on the 8th fret of the E string. I'm going to strum through all 4 of these strings for this beautiful C chord. It's a really nice sound, right? And after I've done this C chord, I'm then going to take this middle finger and I'm going to slide it down to the 3rd fret of the E string. So you see how it's not coming off the string, it's just sliding down. And then I'm going to take my index, move it up to the 2nd fret of the C string, and my pinky is going to go here to the 5th fret of the A string. And you see on the tab, this is a G chord, 0, 2, 3, 5, with our index, middle, and pinky fingers strum through all 4 strings. So that measure is a little tricky, but really worthwhile to practice. In fact, what I would practice a lot is with that measure 2, playing the open, 2, 3, slide up, and then slide back down. And try to get comfortable looking at where your fingers are going. And a little tip here is try to actually have your eyes look ahead to where you need to go. So when I play this chord here, I'm looking over here, 2, 3, to get ready for that slide, right? But then after we've done this, we go on to the 4th measure, which starts with a little filler. I like to just use the thumb. Again, totally optional. All of the notes in parentheses, you do not have to play. And then we're going to finish off with 2 sets of what are called thirds here. So you remember I mentioned at the start of the video that we're going to be learning how to use chords and other forms of harmony. Well, this is just thirds. It's a very basic form of harmony that sounds really rich. We're going to play this by taking the index and putting it here on the 10th fret of the A string. And then I like to use my middle finger here on the 12th fret of the E string. So just the index and middle fingers. The fingers will turn a little bit towards the shoulder here, just to make room for it. I'm going to play those 2 together. And I'm going to be using my thumb with that rest stroke concept. Even though there's nowhere to rest after I play the A string, I'm still kind of going inward a bit with the thumb to create that sound. And then I'm going to slide these 2 fingers down. I'm going to slide the middle finger down to 10, but the index only down to 9. So this is why I like to slant the fingers, is because I then, as I slide down, straighten them more straight up and down, and that closes the gap between them. So it goes from 1 fret between with 12 and 10 to adjacent frets with 10 and 9. And that finishes that section. So you can hear it though. Here's the beginning. Again, that little pickup bar, and then all the way through the first 4 measures. Should sound something like this. Pretty cool, right? Another little tip there is when you're coming off this G chord, this middle finger just slides up to 12 and adds that other finger, right? A lot of these little movements make this a lot easier. But from here we go on to measures 5, 6, 7, and 8, which should sound something like this when you play them through. So now to learn this part, we're going to start with that same C chord that we played up here. Now, a quick note, remember we just came from the 12 and 10 and 10 and 9, so now we're going to this 8 and 7 here. So we just keep those same fingers on, strum through all 4 strings. Then we do a nice soft filler strum, right? See how it's in parentheses. Then we just go to the 6th measure here. It's another little filler strum. So I'm just going to do another nice soft strum. This is a great instance of when you're doing these filler strums, even if you want to play the most compelling advanced version of the song, you might not want to do every single one. It can be a little bit full. So maybe you just do one of them. Right? It's up to you as you're doing this. So don't feel obligated to play every parenthesis note. Just know that you can to create different levels of depth. But after we've done that on measure 6, we're going to keep that third party going. So these 2 fingers are going to maintain contact. We're going to slide the index down to 5 and the middle down to 7. So there's going to be a fret distance. So turn the fingertips towards the shoulder and that kind of opens them up. So I've got 7 on the E, 5 on the A. Play that. Slide back up to 8 and 7. So you see how I go more straight up and down. Back to 7 and 5. More towards the shoulder. And then going into the 7th measure here, this middle finger is going to slide down to the 3rd fret of the E string. And I'm going to play this G chord a different way than how you might normally play it. I'm going to take my index, I'm going to bar it here across the 2nd fret of my C, E, and A strings, making sure I get right up next to that fret wire. That really helps. And make sure you pull back a little bit. Don't just push, but pull back to kind of pinch that A string. And that middle finger is there on the 3rd fret of the E, right? Got to make sure you get a really nice angle with this middle finger to get a good tone there. I'm going to strum through all 4 of those strings. Then add 5 on the A with the pinky. And then I'm going to do a filler strum just over that 0, 2, 3, 5 chord that I'm already playing. And then going into the 8th measure, I'm going to do a little different chord here. It's technically a G major 7, but it's really more of just a harmonic movement. I'll talk more about that in just a second. But I'm going to just take this middle finger off. So it's 0, 2, 2, 2. I'm going to do a nice soft strum on that. And then I'll play the 5 on the A, which is already there for our melody. So measures 5, 6, 7, and 8 should sound something like this all together. Now, the next section here, going into measures 9, 10, 11, and 12, we're going to see where that harmonic movement moves a little bit, and it's going to sound something like this as I go through. I love these 4 measures. So we're going to start with this E minor. Remember I mentioned some harmonic movement. Well, we just came from this, right? We went from 3 to 2, and now we're going to go to 0, and that's why we do that little filler at the end of 8, because here at 9 we play 0, 4 with the index finger here on the C string, and 0 on the E, and 7 on the A with the pinky. It's this really wonderful E minor. So that just, hear that movement, so nice. After I play through that, strumming all through 4 strings, I'm going to play the 7 on the A twice. And then I'm going to move to this B minor. Now, to play this B minor, we don't have to bar all the way across. We're just playing the C, E, and A. So take your index. You can do a partial bar there, C, E, and A strings. Just make sure with your rest stroke here with your thumb, you don't start on the G string, but you start on the C string and strum through all 3 strings. Now, notice how this is filler, right? This one right here is meant to be played quiet. Now, I'm not doing my thumb strum because my thumb strum's not as precise as I want it to be. I'll hit that G string sometimes accidentally. So I'm just going to try to play it really soft with the thumb. Even though it is a filler note, I'm going to play it this way, just nice and soft. And I'll play the 2 on the A, nice and pronounced, melody. 5 on the A with the pinky. Back to 2 on the A, taking the pinky off. And then the hardest chord of the whole song, just kidding, all open. And we're going to play 3 on the E. It doesn't matter too much which finger you use here. I think the middle finger is best though. And then we've got this wonderful fill line for measures 11 into 12. What it is you're going to play the open on the C, and you're going to play it nice and soft. Now, I'm using my thumb. I'm using a normal strike here. I'm just playing it a little softer. Kind of sounds almost like a guitar riff because we're going to use some slides. We're going to play open on the C, and then going into measure 12, you see how it says the number 2, super small, and then it's tied to the 4 with a little line in between, and the little SL, that means to slide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that index finger, place it on the 2nd fret of the C string. I'm going to play that note with my thumb, and I'm going to immediately slide it to the 4th fret of the C string. And the important thing to do with a slide is to make sure that you maintain or even increase your pressure just a little bit with the finger that's fretting. That can help make sure that the tone continues to resonate and the string continues to sustain. That's a big trick. Also, look at where you're sliding to. See, I'm going right into that fret wire, but not over it, right? I'm just getting really comfortable looking at that point and doing the slide almost immediately, right? I play the 2 and almost immediately slide into the 4. And then to finish that measure, we're going to play open on the A, which is a melody note. So play that nice and pronounced. So measures 9, 10, 11, and 12. I think they're my favorite of the song. They're going to sound something like this. And now we go on to measures 13, 14, 15, and 16. These measures all together should sound something like this. All right, so what do we do here? Well, we're going to start with a G chord. Now, we can play a G chord this way, the way we did at the start of the song. Or, to make things a little bit easier for ourselves, we can actually play it this way, the way that we played it another point in the song, right? The way that we actually played it in the last set of, the last time we saw this chord. So to play this, index finger bars across the 2nd fret of the C, E, and A, middle finger here on the 3rd fret of the E. We're going to strum through all 4, and then nice soft strum for filler. Another nice soft strum for filler. Just like earlier, if you find that that's too much background strumming, you could just do 1, totally fine. Then I'm going to play the 3 on the E, which is already there, 2 on the A, which is already there, then 7 on the A. So how do I play this? Well, I'm going to take my pinky and I'm going to stretch it out to the 7th fret of the A string. Now, if you can do this stretch, awesome. This is a tough stretch though. Totally fine to take these fingers off. Pinky out here to 7. After you've done that, we're going to measure 15, where we play this D chord. Take that pinky, slide it down 2 frets to the 5. Take the index, add it across the 2nd fret completely across all 4 strings. Make sure you hug that fret wire and pull back a little bit as you do it. Strum through, and then a filler strum on that same D chord. From here it goes into the 16th measure. We're going to play the D7 chord. All that we do is, instead of the pinky here, we're going to take the middle, place it on the 3rd fret of the A. Index stays where it was. Nice soft strum for a filler. And then to end this measure, we're going to play 3 on the E string. I like to just use my middle finger, bring it up, and then take the index off for the open A string. So those measures, 13, 14, 15, and 16, should sound something like this. Now, as we go on, we go to the end section of this song, the last 4 measures. And they're going to sound something like this. Now, quick note, when you look at it, there's a repeat sign, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to play 17, 18, 19 first. We'll talk it through, then I'll explain how it works into 20. But 17, 18, and 19 should sound something like this. And you hear that at the end of this, it kind of wants to go back into the song. Right? We'll talk more about that in a moment, but that is the first repeat, meaning we go back. So let's go ahead and play measure 17 now. We're going to be playing our G chord. This time, I like to play it the first way we played it. So a lot of flip-flopping between this. And this arrangement's a really good example of showing you how one chord can be exactly the same, but there's 2 different right ways to play it depending on context. Context here likes to have these 3 fingers engaged. Index on the 2nd fret of the C, ring on the 3rd fret of the E, middle on the 2nd fret of the A. Strum through all 4 strings, then a nice filler strum there. Then we're going to play 3 on the E. Now we're going to play this modified D7 chord. Now to do this, take your ring finger off. Then these 2 fingers, you see how they're at 2 on the C and the A? I want you to just move them up a string. So this is going to go to 2 on the G, and this is going to go to 2 on the E. You don't actually have to move them much, and you can move them together. And that's what I really like, is moving them together. It creates really good efficiency. We're going to strum through all 4 strings. And then for this G chord here, we can just go back to this and add the ring finger if we'd like. So it goes. And then for the final measure here on 19 before the repeat, we strum through all 4 strings again. And then we pluck the 2 on the C. So this is the repeat. So I'm going to play this so that you can hear it. I'm actually going to play 17, 18, 19, and then I'm going to do the repeat. And if you look at that tab and you see when it comes back on screen in a moment here, measure 1 has that repeat sign mirroring what's on 19. What that means is when we're done with 19, we go all the way back to measure 1. We skip the pickup bar. We play measure 1 instead. And then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And then instead of going to 19 again, you see how that's the first ending? We go on to our second ending on measure 20. Now, I want to show you measure 20 real quick so that you can know what it's going to sound like so that I can do the repeat and you can hear all of it. But measure 20, you're going to play the open G. And then you're going to play this awesome G chord. I think it's my favorite on the ukulele. Index finger bar across the 10th fret on the E and A strings. Middle finger crosses up to the 11th fret of the C string. This is tough because this finger, the middle finger, has to kind of arch over at the 11th fret. And the index has to kind of recess at 10. And so it's just open on the G followed by that. Sounds so wonderful. Well, let's go ahead and hear it. So I'm going to play 17, 18, 19, and I'm going to repeat the whole thing so that you can hear what the whole thing sounds like. And then when I get back to 17, 18, I'm not going to go to 19, but back to 20. Should sound something like this, starting with 17. Isn't that nice? It's such a beautiful melody. I'm going to bring the camera back up to me now. So what's cool about this melody, we've got all these fillers, right? And they can really add different dimensions to your performance of this. And because it has a repeat and this melody wants to play again and again, what I actually recommend is doing something more sparse the first time. Maybe you do a couple of the fillers or even none of them. And then on the second repeat, you can layer in more. And let's say you want to repeat it again, you can layer even more as you go through, right? There's a lot of these little optional things. So kind of pick and choose the sound that you want for your arrangement of this. And what's cool, you don't have to follow the tab perfectly either. Try different things. You can see these chords that are listed here. You can see some of these things. If you get really comfortable with this arrangement, it's okay to experiment. Maybe add extra chords in certain places, right? A lot of times when we're doing chord melody, we put the chord underneath the melody. This happens at the beginning of the song. We play this chord this way without the string to get the melody note. Well, what if I want to add the chord all the time? You totally could. Right? This sounds kind of cool. I'm just adding more chords as I go through. These are the types of things that you can experiment with, try, and make it your own. That's the goal behind this lesson. It's not just to learn this beautiful melody, but it's also for you to find a version of this song that you love to make your own. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. As I mentioned earlier in this video, I've got a Patreon page, and it's thanks to my patrons I'm able to make these tutorials. Every month we do a different lesson vote based on suggestions of patrons, and then a vote based on that. And this won this month's vote. And I think it won because it's an absolutely gorgeous melody that has a lot of room to be manipulated on the ukulele in different ways to create these different types of sounds. So again, as I mentioned before, any comments, questions, leave them down below. And if you want to download this tab, please check out my Patreon page. If you're already a patron, thank you so much. I so much appreciate your support. Thanks again. I'll look forward to seeing you on the next video here on YouTube. Take it easy and have a good one.